This is the OTB Television Network, a service of Capital District Off-Track Betting.
Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. Thanks also to our friends at GULFSTREAM Park for their sponsorship. GULFSTREAM Park, champions start here. We appreciate their sponsorship of this program, some of the other programming and events. And speaking of events, do want to remind you that once again this afternoon, we wrap up our Bankroll Bonanza. Started on Thursday, continued Friday, Saturday, and today here at the Clubhouse Racebook. I'll have $300 to play on behalf of the Bankroll team between 11 and 2. You can put your name in the hat. Get your chance to get selected as part of the team. 20 folks will get selected here at the Clubhouse Racebook. I start betting at about 1 and continue to 4:30, 5 o'clock or so. And what we have left at the end of the day gets split amongst the Bankroll team. So swing on down. It's always a lot of fun. The more the merrier kind of a situation. So we would love to see you down here at the Clubhouse Racebook this afternoon. Again, put your name in the hat and get your chance to be on the Bankroll team and walk away with perhaps a little free money. And yesterday I did okay. I wasn't knocking it dead by any means. Hit a couple of things early that gave us a little cushion, then played around, took a couple of shots here and there during the day, got back up to just a little over our $300 original starting point, and then took a couple more shots and wound up $200 and some dollars, but everybody walked away, all the Bankroll team walked away with that $11 and change. Can't retire, but a little free money in your pocket to maybe make some bets for today. Game plan, obviously, with this afternoon's Bankroll is, you want to double or triple it. We'll see how it works out this afternoon. We'll, again, swing a little bit. So, as I say, come on down. We would love to see you down here at the Clubhouse Racebook. And also, you can watch all the playoff games here as well, as we've been showing all the games on the screens throughout the NFL season, and that continues for the playoffs. Come on down, have some lunch, sit at the bar, sit out in the Clubhouse Racebook itself, and just come on down and enjoy the afternoon here at the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. All right, we're going to start things out with some stakes recaps. Middle portion of the show, we're going to do a little bit of handicapping as we normally do. I'm going to kind of go through the play I put out on the one sheet. It looks like there's a couple of chalky horses to kick things off pick 5-wise, the early pick 5 at AQUEDUCT today. So I'll use the two chalks and then maybe spread around a little bit in that early pick 5 at AQUEDUCT. We'll see if we can pick that off early today. And so we'll go through that sequence in our handicapping segment. And a little bit later on, Frank VESPE from the RacingBiz.com will join us going over the stakes action yesterday at Laurel. They had a nice stakes card. Really, they have a nice stakes schedule throughout the winter, and had some nice stakes there yesterday. We talked on yesterday's program about that with both Dave Rodman and hit on one of the stakes with Terry Finley from West Point Thoroughbreds. And as we'll see when we watch the stakes recaps with Frank a little bit later in the show from Laurel, General Downs gets it done for West Point Thoroughbreds. I told Terry for the last month and a half or so, it seems like as I've been doing the OTB Live afternoon show, West Point has been on a little bit of a roll, and it continued yesterday with General Downs and the native dancer. So again, congratulations to our friends at West Point Thoroughbreds. But we'll talk about all those Laurel stakes from yesterday. Again, towards the last portion of the show with Frank VESPE. Laurel today canceled, so keep that in mind if you're a Laurel fan and you play the Maryland Racing Laurel with some inclement weather this afternoon or during the day, obviously, you could see the snow coming in at the end of the day yesterday. When we talked to Dave Rodman, he said that was the forecast. Things were going to maybe turn towards the end of the day. That's the way it turned out, and obviously they've taken some weather down there, so Laurel canceled for today. All right, let's get to some stakes recaps, and before we go to yesterday, I wanted to go back to last Sunday. We talked a little bit about it on Sunday's show in preview, but I just wanted to go back, watch the Santa Ynez Grade 2 event from Santa Anita, a couple $100,000 for the 3-year-old fillies going 7 furlongs, and all eyes were on Bellafina, who was the leader in the 2-year-old filly division going into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly. Then she ran 4th behind Jaywalk and Restless Rider, so they moved to the top of the class, along with Newspaper Record, of course. But the comeback, here we see her. She's the number 2 horse here, pulling off by a chart margin of 8.5. Running second is Mother for Bob Baffert, who's a talented runner herself. So it was only a field of 5 in here last Sunday. But with Mother in here, she had won a stake at Churchill Downs back in October, had run a close-up 3rd in the Grade 1 Starlet at Los Al. So Mother was a nice runner from Bob Baffert that gave some legitimacy to this field. So nice comeback for Bellafina. They talked to the owner. I was watching one of the broadcasts where they caught the owner on the way down to the winner's circle, and they said they were very disappointed. They had high hopes going into that Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly. They were very disappointed, obviously, with the result. He's then told the trainer, when the horse is ready, let's come back. And I guess Bellafina was just kind of in one of those situations, tearing down the shed row, and so they decided to get the start on January 6th, last weekend, and came back in that Santa Ynez. They said the game plan will be to point towards the Santa Anita Oaks with her, and then obviously all goes well, the Kentucky Oaks. But I just pulled up an article from last weekend. It was a career best buyer of 95 in that win in the Santa Ynez, and as you saw, it was visually impressive. So nice little seasonal debut for Bellafina. She's back, as it were. Obviously, again, Santa Anita Oaks is in the headlights, and the Kentucky Oaks. You always have to wonder, though, with a horse like this, Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly being run last year at Churchill Downs. Was it a negative horse for a course kind of thing? We won't know until she comes back, if she shows back up in the Kentucky Oaks. But that has to be something that's going to be in the back of their mind a little bit. And as handicappers, it'll be interesting to see if it's in the back of our mind as well, if she continues to kind of run the table with that kind of talent that we saw there and heads back to Kentucky for the Kentucky Oaks late April, early May. All right, again, that was from last Sunday. Want to look at some stakes from yesterday, but before we do that, wanted to look at an undercard race from Aqueduct yesterday because it was our friend Roddy Valenti, who I was in the house. I didn't see him personally, but there was a lot of noise coming from the restaurant yesterday. I was out in the race book doing the bankroll. I was sitting at the table for the 7th race at Aqueduct yesterday. Stoney Bennett, Andy Serling said it leading into this race. This 7th at Aqueduct yesterday was really a very, very nice race. Super talented horses. And Roddy had number 11, Stoney Bennett, in here stretching out. That was the question mark. The 7th yesterday was at a mile. Stoney Bennett's the number 11. You can see the favorite, the lukewarm 7-2 favorite, Mr. Dougie Fresh, comes up the number 6 and goes by Stoney Bennett. And at this point, you had to have thought, Stoney's done. There'll be a little grudge match here. They go back and forth, but then Mr. Dougie Fresh gets the best, and you think probably done. But no, Stoney Bennett, this is gorgeous. It comes back, boom, 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 boom. Stoney Bennett gets it done by a neck at 9-1. Running third, and there was House Limit. I played House Limit with the bankroll, the Jimmy Jerkins runner in the third career start. For the third career start, that was a good run from House Limit. But I played house limit in the bankroll, 5-2 on the morning line. When I played house limit, about 5-1, something like that. Eventually went down to 7-2 as the co-choice, and as I say, wound up third. I kind of kicked myself that I didn't play Roddy's horse. Stoney Bennett with the early speed from the outside. 12-1 on the morning line, went off at 9-1. I thought both of those were kind of generous, though, with the speed. The question mark, obviously, was the distance. You look down the page, it's mostly six furlongs, and there's 1 6.5. There's a mile race in October 2017 where the horse ran fourth. But, over the Aqueduct wintertime surface and with that early speed off the nice win back in November, that 9-1, as I say, looked generous. So I kind of kicked myself afterwards. I didn't push that one into the bankroll for a $20.20 win price, particularly since it was a couple of years ago, 2, maybe 3 years ago. We had a bankroll one day, and it was the same day. It coincided with, I want to say, a 2-day, maybe a 3-day carryover for the pick 6 down at Aqueduct. So we tossed a little more money into the bankroll that day, and I wound up hitting the pick 6 at Aqueduct as part of our bankroll. But it was the race just before the finale. Roddy's horse kept us alive in the pick 6. I want to say, Do You Know Something, his horse there. He kept us alive in the pick 6 that day with a bankroll. Again, as I say, 2, maybe 3 years ago. I should have looked it up. I'm pretty sure it was Do You Know Something that did it. So Roddy's been good to us with the bankroll. I should have been on Stoney Bennett, but I wanted to show the race because that's the kind, you just don't see that kind of gutsy performance that often where the horse gets past. Kind of was a neck back at that point and came back to win by a neck at the nice $20 mutual. So again, congratulations to our friend Roddy Valente with the nice win yesterday at Aqueduct. And again, a salty little undercard race. The feature yesterday at Aqueduct was the Say Florida Sandy, $100,000 up for grabs for 4-year-olds and up. State breds going 7 furlongs. I put Gold for the King on top. That horse did go off as the $1.15 to the dollar favorite. Wound up third. Gold for the King's the number 2 and just gets some trouble. Has no room to run here. Potentially was best, winds up third, but the second choice, Honor Up, the number 9, gets it done. Cindergaard, the number 7, was kind of getting a little push, was getting touted a little bit, went early, was going at a very short price. Cindergaard eventually floated up to 6-1 and runs very well, but gets beaten by Honor Up, the number 9 horse there, under Manny Franco. And I said it yesterday, Manny Franco, I said it during one of the undercard races that he won, Manny, at a little bit more of a price, but Manny Franco wound up to be the leading jockey in New York last year. So you got the winner, he's going to have a great winner. You got to pay attention to Manny Franco. But, and we're talking the whole year. Aqueduct in the winter, Belmont in the summer, Saratoga and whatnot. Manny Franco was the leading jockey in New York for 2018. Chad Brown, leading trainer, Mike Dubb, the leading owner, but that Manny Franco got the nod as the leading jockey kind of stands out to me. And as I say, most of the other contenders are spending the winter down in Florida, so Manny is going to be very, very interesting this winter down at Aqueduct. But he winds up on Honor Up, winning the Say Florida Sandy yesterday by a chart margin of a neck. That was in the sequence of pick 6 races yesterday at Aqueduct that led to a carryover. $27,000 carryover into today's pick 6 at Aqueduct, and understandable. Looking through the sequence yesterday, let's work our way backwards from the finale. The last race yesterday at Aqueduct, it was a $3.20 horse. That was the only favorite in the pick 6 sequence yesterday. The prior race was $7.10. That was a second choice in a field of 8. Roddy's horse, Stoney Bennett, at $20 was the sixth choice in a field of 10. There was a $15 horse, fourth choice in a field of 8. $8.60, second choice in a field of 8. And then the race that kicked off the sequence, race number 4, it was Warren's Vengeance, $162. The 8th best in a field of 8, 8th longest price in the field of 8. with a nice stretch run that made the horse look more like Secretariat. Won by a chart margin of 4.5. $80 to 1 over, and it was a first-time starter, over another first-time starter in that fourth race at Aqueduct yesterday at 68 to 1, the second longest price on the board in the field of 8. For $1, the exacta, $1,016. And as we were out in the front side yesterday in the race book doing the bankroll, and as this $162 horse came under the wire, there was some cheering off in the distance, and one of our players out here, got to go with the all ball sometimes, had played a nice sequence and hit the all button. We've all been there. You hit the all button and the 3 to 5 favorite wins the race, but when you hit the all button and an 80 to 1 longest price on the board wins, that's a gorgeous play. So again, congratulations to one of our players out here in the race book yesterday for making a very crafty play on a $162 horse at Aqueduct. And again, that sequence, that because of that, and frankly, it's surprising there was, I guess the 5 after that one were havable. And I would love to know how it shook out of the 5 correct. I'd love to know how many of those 5 correct tickets, and 5 correct paid for just under $4,600, $4,500. So it was a pretty good payoff for 5 of 6. But I'd love to know how many of those tickets included the $162 horse, or were the majority of them had to be the 5 after that. But again, it was an interesting way to kick off the 6 yesterday, but it led to that carryover this afternoon in the pick 6 at Aqueduct, $27,000 and change as well. All right, let's go down to Gulfstream, take a look at a couple of stakes from Gulfstream Park on Saturday afternoon. The Tropical Turf, 4-year-olds and up, Grade 3 event, a mile on the grass. The number 6, Heart to Heart, was expected to be the front runner, but as the chart says, tough trip. Did not get out to the lead. Take a look at the number 6, though. Heart to Heart, a bona fide front runner, and just didn't get to the front. But boy, Julian Lipero got this one in a good spot and made a nice late run, and you thought was going to go against the grain and get it done, but then gets mowed down late by Shug's horse, Dr. Mounty, and in fact gets caught for second, just nipped for second. So Heart to Heart, out of his game plan out of the gate, just did not get to the lead as normal. But Dr. Mounty for Shug gets it done. 10 to 1 on the morning line, eventually came down some clicks to 5 to 1. It was Shug, it was Javier Castellano with a horse that has plenty of late run. Early fractions were legitimate, 23, 46, 110, 122. Final time of 134 and change. Again, making that late run from Heart to Heart even more interesting, because that's just not that horse's game plan. So it was interesting. I thought the horse was going to get up and win the race, and ran a great effort, but just got caught by a couple other late runners coming down the lane in good fashion. Dr. Mounty, Your Only Man, was the horse that ran second there at 10 to 1, but 5 to 1 on Dr. Mounty. Nice $12 and change price for the Shug horse in the Tropical Turf. Also on the card yesterday at Gulfstream Park, the Marshall was River, mile and a 16th on the grass for the fillies and mares, and in the Marshall River as the second choice, close-up second choice, Bellevue. The handicappers down at Gulfstream, I know Acacia and Jason were both talking about Bellevue. I thought I'm Betty G looked pretty good. I put that one on top, and at 8 to 1, I'm Betty G is going to run a nice second, but no match for the winner. Bellevue, the number 1 horse, as you can see, coming up the rail. Nice rail skimming ride from Javier Castellano, picking up another stakes win, and kind of runs away and hides in the second start in the Todd Pletcher barn. Had been in the barn of Jimmy Toner, was racing for Phillips Racing earlier in the career, but now has switched teams, as it were. And again, second start for Pletcher, looking pretty good. Left from the 1 hole, skimmed up the rail under Javier Castellano. I'm Betty G, as I say. I put that one on top. Got a nice 8 to 1 price with Irod, and in the blanket finish, that one wound up second, Valedictorian third, Bombshell fourth. La Signaire, the favorite, the 2 to 1 favorite for Brian Lynch, a horse I had right underneath, I'm Betty G, wound up a little bit of a disappointing 6th in the field of 8 in there. But Bellevue gets it done. As a 5-year-old now, she'll be an interesting horse to watch on the filly and mare turf scene going forward this year. So we'll keep our eyes on her for Mr. Pletcher. All right, let's go out to Southern California. A couple of stakes races to wind up our recap. La Cienega on the card yesterday at Santa Anita. That downhill sprinter, I love those downhill turf sprints, and this was one of those for fillies and mares 4-year-olds and up. Belvoir Bay is going to be the winner here in a scratch-reduced field of 4, wound up as the favorite, and it's a scratch-reduced field of 4. Oh, as I say, it was the downhill turf course originally. But again, weather across the country has been kind of crazy. You don't think of Southern California, but I want to say, was it when we were talking to Brad Free or John White? They were talking about the weather they've gotten out there. And it's that time of year. It's their rainy season out there. So you get the winter, it can happen more than you're going to see the rest of the year. But again, they did get knocked off yesterday, which led to that scratch-reduced field. But Belvoir Bay, interesting that the betting public tilted towards this one with the surface switch, because this is clearly more of a turf runner. But it's, there kind of wasn't any direction to go other. Lady Subi was coming in from an off-the-turf win at Belmont most recently, moving out of the barn of Chad Brown into the barn of John Sadler. Wound up as the 3rd choice, but ran 2nd in there. Compelled ran 3rd. Painting Corners ran 4th. And again, the scratch-reduced field of 4. There was 9 entered, but again, no surprise with the situation with the surface switch. And hopefully back on the turf. As I say, I love those downhill turf sprints. So hopefully back on the turf sooner rather than later out in Southern, sooner rather than later everywhere. Although Gulfstream's been okay. Gulfstream a few weeks ago had a little period, but they've been fighting the weather a little bit down at the fairgrounds most of this season. Tampa had a stretch where they couldn't get on the turf. And, of course, we go back to the late summer and fall in New York and really the East Coast. It's been tough. So you hate to see it out in Southern California as well. But as I say, they have this kind of winter season where that hits. That'll turn sooner rather than later. The La Cañada, the Grade 3 event, 4 fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up, going 1 mile and a 16th. It will be the number 6 Escape Clause. Coming out of some turf stakes. But as we talked a little bit about this one yesterday in preview, there were a few horses in here that had shown some turf starts most recently, but had some okay dirt form underneath. Escape Clause being one of those. Escape Clause also a good performance on the resume on a wet track, so gets it done as the even money favorite under Tyler Bay's Escape Clause. As you see there, the number 6 horse, the chart margin 5.5 lengths. KP Wildcat second. Lamuna ran 3rd in there. But again, just wanted to take a look at those Southern California stakes races because they'll play into some of the stakes as we go forward in this winter-spring season out at Santa Anita. All right, time to, I'm looking at the clock on the floor, time to take the break and come back, do a little handicapping. Again, I'll go through that early pick 5 sequence at Aqueduct, which starts out a little chalky. We'll see if maybe we can get those 2 chalks home and look to get a couple of prices maybe a little bit later on. We'll go through that sequence, and in a few minutes down the road, Frank VESPE from the RacingBiz.com will join us. RacingBiz.com always does a great job covering racing in the Mid-Atlantic. Frank was at Laurel yesterday for their 4 stakes races, so we'll touch on those in a little bit. Right after this, some handicapping. Stay tuned.
Here in upstate New York, no one provides bettors with more wagering options than Capital OTB. Our network of branch and easy bet locations stretches from the mid-Hudson Valley all the way to the Canadian border and west to central New York. So whether you need to place a bet, fund your Capital Bets account, or watch the next big race, all the action is just around the corner. A full list of our branch and easy bet locations can be found online at capitalotb.com. Capital OTB, the better and most convenient choice for wagering in upstate New York.
Visit Rivers Casino and Resort, the Capital Region's only destination for live table game action and the hottest new slots paying out millions. And they're off. Horse betting is now at Rivers Casino and Resort with Capital off-track betting terminals and live tellers located just off the gaming floor at Van Slyck's. Get in on all the action at Rivers Casino and Resort.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. I'm Seth Merrow. Thanks for joining us. Again, we'll hop in to a little bit of handicapping this afternoon. Again, no OTB Live this afternoon, but we will have some cut-ins during the afternoon from out in the branch out here, the Clubhouse Racebook. Don't forget, there's a bankroll today. Stop on by, put your name in the hat between 11 and 2 o'clock. We select a team of 20 at about 2. I start playing at about 1 o'clock and try to build that $300 up, and all the people on the team split up the money at the end of the day, so we'll see what we can do. But also want to give you a heads up, if you're playing this afternoon, maybe you want to take a look at this early pick 5. Have it on the one sheet, and again, the one sheet's available every racing day at capitalotb.com. Click on the handicapper support link. You can find the selections at the various tracks we're looking at that afternoon from our handicappers here. And on Gulfstream days, the Matrix from Brian Nadeau. But Brian, I mentioned it when we were in doing the handicapper support on Saturday. But Brian, it was last Thursday, and a really nice day on the one sheet worth taking a look at by all means. And it's a nice printable sheet as well. You can print it and put it next to your computer if you're playing at home, or take it along with you if you're going to your local parlor. All right, one sheet today for me. Play of the day is the early pick 5, because I thought the first 2 races just, they look chalky, but maybe we can get a price in a little bit later in that pick 5 if we do get the 2 chalks through. First race at Aqueduct, maiden specials going 5.5. It's a short field of 5. American Mandate just looks to have a real edge on this bunch. Last time was ridden by Eric Cancel. Gets Manny Franco today. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, I think Franco is going to have a really nice winter in New York. But I'm a buyer guy, and this horse just has such an edge that it's hard to go past. 3 to 5 on the morning line, so I'm not talking about anything that anybody can't see. Grump's Little Tots is in the second spot for me. It's Michael Dubb, it's Jason Service. On the connections, this horse just has to be paid attention to. 2 starts so far, Monmouth in August, Parks in late September, and now comes back off a little bit of a layoff with a first-time gelding symbol. First couple of races look a little bit salty with next out winners coming out of them. So Grump's Little Tots is maybe the one in the 3rd start off a little bit of a layoff, that first-time gelding symbol. That's the one that maybe could upset the apple cart. But I'll start my pick 5 play. Again, we're looking for a couple of chalks early, and then maybe something a little bit later on. But American Mandate, if this race lives up to what's on the page, American Mandate may have this group over a barrel. So in race number 1, we will use the 3 horse in the pick 5 sequence. Race number 2, we're going to stick with the number 1. Even money favorite, Stan the Man, coming out of the Cigar Mile. This horse was entered in a stake yesterday at Laurel, so I just found it intriguing that they chose this spot. And again, that the Cigar Mile was a solid number, was well beaten that day, but obviously the Cigar Mile year in and year out is going to be a salty race, certainly as compared to an optional claimer like this. So I have Stan the Man as the top pick. I have it 1, 6, 4, and 2 in the second at Aqueduct. Weather Whiz tossed in a clunker last time for Jimmy Jerkins, but the races just before that were very good, and certainly the races 2 and 3 back as compared to what Stan the Man did 2 and 3 back, make this one dangerous. So again, I'm going for the chalk. The chalk in the first race to me is a little more of sure thing than the chalk in the second race. Stand the Man is maybe a little more vulnerable to Weather Whiz. As they say, the Michael Dove horse in the first race is interesting, but you're kind of crystal ball looking that the horse maybe in the third career start will move forward a little bit. Whereas in this race, I think Weather Whiz is legitimately talented enough that on a best effort becomes very competitive with Stand the Man. Regal Quality for Linda Rice probably has to step it up a little bit, as does Tusk to get to those top two. But if you wanted to play around, make the ticket a little more expensive, Stand the Man and Weather Whiz, I think it's one or the other of those, just so I could go deeper a little bit later and hope maybe something with some value comes through. I stuck with the one here. So have singled the 3 in the first leg, the 1 in the second leg, and then I went 4 deep in the other 3 legs, which is going to make it a $32 ticket for 50 cents. So, it's affordable. And again, we're a little bit deeper in these other legs and hope maybe we get a little bit of an upset to add some value. In race number 3 at Aqueduct, a $40,000 conditional claimer. I have it 4, 5, 1, and 6. The number 4 is Sharp and Ready. Goes out for Rudy and makes the class drop that I think is going to be very significant. Has been in allowance non-winners of one other than in the last 2 races. 2 races back, just a solid 88 buyer with a close-up second place finish. Last time regressed on the move to Aqueduct. Now that is a little bit of a concern, but even the regression puts this horse in a very good spot with this $40,000 conditional field. So it's first time Rudy moving in for the tag. Off a couple of very good numbers, comparatively speaking, in the last 2 starts. Magnetron in the second spot. Been at this level in the past 2. Showed some nice improvement last time, and last time was in fact a best out buyer figure. Finished behind Monteleone, who came back to win subsequently. So that maybe flatters this one a little bit. So Magnetron in the mix. Arc in the dark in the 3rd spot, like the top pick, makes a class move that I think is going to be very beneficial. Does come back off an early August layoff. So this one getting the time off is maybe a little bit of a concern, but had a workout, nice little bullet workout in the middle of December that was okay. So we'll see if Kelly Breen can bring this one back ready to run. Clearly they had some high hopes and had some ambitions for this horse. In the 4th career start, they tried the Pegasus over at Monmouth. Ran 5th that day in a field of 7. But you just have to like that they thought enough of this horse and felt there was enough talent there to give that a shot. Now I think they're just kind of being realistic, as this is a newly turned 4-year-old and probably getting to more of the comfort zone for this one. Again, to me, the layoff is a little bit of a concern, but otherwise I think fits in with this group. And Shamrock Kid with the early speed for Brad Cox, just dangerous there. You look at the rest of the field, and Shamrock Kid from the outside just could absolutely be a catch me if you can kind of situation. And given that this one looks like the bona fide speed, it may be tough for them to catch that one. So I'll use all 4 in leg 3 of the pick 5. Race number 3, 4, 5, 1, and 6. Again, I'll go 4 deep in race 4 as well. Oh, and I pulled up the scratches. They may still have scratches coming out a little bit later on, but they're already showing some scratches on the NYRA website for today. But they don't affect the first 5 races. So the play holds up is what I'm trying to get at. I will also note, though, there's a note in here, all jockeys carrying plus 2 pounds due to the weather. So I'm assuming cold temperatures down there. I think they allow for the extra weight for the guys to kind of protect themselves from the cold, because when you're going at 40 miles an hour out there, it doesn't necessarily have to be windy. You're still affected by a wind chill. But 4th at Aqueduct, again, I'll go 4 deep in here. 6, 2, 5, and 3. It's a state bred maiden claimer, 5.5 furlongs. The number 6 is Forecaster for Jeremiah Engelhardt. And you just look underneath it. The horses that have raced, it's not a particularly strong field, as you would expect in a state bred maiden 30. But this one, a son of Mission Impassable, with a couple of nice workouts. That December 23rd bullet and the January 6th 47 and chains, second best of 37. I think indicate this horse is going to be legitimate in the first start out of the box. And this is the kind of race where you can make a case for a fresh face. Desert Party is a sire that floats under the radar. I will say, Triple Axel, I didn't put it in my mix. This is the kind of race, though. Again, the two big prices yesterday at Aqueduct were first-time starters. So with Desert Party, the number 4 Triple Axel, I may kick myself that I didn't put that one in, because that would definitely balloon up the pick 5. But I went the first-time starter forecaster on top, and then used 3 others that have shown some ability in their starts so far. Wisecrack, the last start was pretty good number-wise as compared to this bunch. It was for a maiden special tag. This horse has been in for a tag a couple of times, but not as low as this 30 price. So on the class move, the number fired last time, Wisecrack gets in. Center City with the early speed. That Rue here, the number 3 horse that I have just under that one, also shows some early speed. I think both of these have the potential to be out there, and maybe if one of them can kind of pull away, be tough to reel in late. So I have those 2 in the mix, as well as a little bit of speed. Mission at the Spa is another first-time starter. It's Rudy, who does okay first time out. The outside horse, I saw it all. Yeah, I wouldn't argue with anybody, particularly given what we saw in that race yesterday with the 2 firsters, taking shots with the fresh faces. I thought the fresh face from Jeremiah was completely logical. Otherwise, I went with horses with a little bit of experience. We'll see how it shapes out in race 4. But in that 4th leg of the pick 5, the 4th race at Aqueduct, I went 4 deep, 6, 2, 5, and 3. In the 5th race at Aqueduct, once again, I'm 4 deep. Hopefully we get to this leg. It's a conditional claimer, 3/4 of a mile. 8, 4, 7, and 9 for me in race 5 at Aqueduct. Desert Lights on top. First off the claim for Gary Gullo. Gary Gullo does very well. First off the claim, this horse has been popular at the claim box in the first 5 starts. 3 claims, including in the last 2 races. Claimed last time for 25, comes back for 16. But you know what? They may just be absolutely realistic. This one ran for 16 2 back and was a good second. Then they bounced up to that 25 last time and was a well-beaten 4th, over 10 lengths. So they may have looked at that and said, you know what, let's go back to the 16. And we claim for 25, but let's get realistic and try to get a good position, a good finishing position here, pick up some purse money. If somebody wants to pick up the horse, they can do it. But I think price-wise, they're maybe just being realistic off the try at 25 last time. Leap to Glory in the 2nd spot. The Charlie Baker horse is getting some class relief. Made that nice move that I think is very potent last time, from state bred allowance to open claimer. Showed a little life early before fading. Adds the blinkers today. Manny Franco stays on board, and you get some additional class relief. 3rd spot, I'll go with Unsullied. Maiden Breaker 2 back was pretty good. Sometimes they just take a start to kind of figure it out and move forward when they move a condition. We'll see if that's the case for Unsullied. And then in the 4th spot, we'll go out to the number 9, All Clear. Gary Siaka trainee, claimed last time, moved into the Siaka barn, another popular claim recently. Last 2 starts, claimed out of both of those. At this level, 2 back, a nice second. Last time, tossed in a little bit of a dud. But boy, there are some very good numbers underneath. Now, some of those are on the turf, but you go back to the November 2017 start, that was a pretty good number. And if this horse can get back to that, and given what we've seen, I wouldn't be shocked. And even doesn't have to get back to that 77, can just kind of get back in the ballpark. Still, I think is going to stack up really nicely with this group at a 6-1 price for Siaka. So race number 5 at Aqueduct to complete our pick 5 play. Again, we'll go 4 deep, 8, 4, 7, and 9. So again, $32 ticket, 1 by 1 by 4 by 4 by 4. You can find it on the one sheet on capitalotb.com. Good luck. We'll see if we can start the day off with a cash and a pick 5 ticket. Not start the day off. By the time you cash, it'll be midway through the day. But there will still be plenty of betting left for you to use that money and maybe balloon it up even more. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we'll shift our attention to Laurel yesterday. As I say, Nice stakes action all winter long at Laurel. And we talked yesterday with Dave Rodman about the 4 stakes in preview. And Rodman had a couple of nice ideas, a couple of winners that he touted out there, including General Downs, the West Point Thoroughbreds horse. So we'll review that Laurel stakes action with Frank VESPE right after this. Stay tuned.
In a recent study of some of the top online wagering sites, Capital OTB won big in total player rewards, far surpassing some of the best-known wagering sites in America. While other rewards programs simply offer you points redeemable for gift cards, Capital OTB's rebates are paid to you in actual cash. Plus, Capital OTB gives you full and immediate access to your money. So if all you're getting now are points and gift cards, join Capital OTB Player Rewards today and get cash back. Visit CapitalOTBBet.com and sign up today.
But Game On Dude is just battling them all off. Game On Dude has the lead. Here's Drosselmeyer out of the clouds. Drosselmeyer from nowhere. And Drosselmeyer and Mike Smith have beaten Chantel Sutherland on Game On Dude.
Not at the track and not near a computer? No problem. Wager with Capital OTB's Touchtone Wagering System and you'll never get shut out again. Capital OTB's Touchtone Wagering System is quick, simple to use, and guarantees your wagers are accurate and placed on time. For more information, visit CapitalOTB.com or call Capital OTB's customer service hotline at 800-292-BETS. Capital OTB's Touchtone Wagering System. Never get shut out again.
Welcome back to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. As promised before the break, joined now by Frank VESPE from the RacingBiz.com. I always say it when Frank is on. If you want to follow racing in the Mid-Atlantic region, no better place than the RacingBiz.com. Frank, good morning.
Morning, Seth. Good to be with you.
Always happy to have you on, particularly in review of some of the stakes action at Laurel. I said it a couple of times already this morning. The Laurel program in the winter is a lot of fun, a lot of stakes. And I mentioned it, we were doing the handicapping show yesterday with Brian Nadeau, and we were talking a little bit about GULFSTREAM and the field size down there. And I kind of tipped my hat to Tim Ritvo. He did a great job down at GULFSTREAM. Now, they aren't necessarily in the middle of the week the highest quality races, but they have, where a lot of tracks are contracting less days, less racing. Down at GULFSTREAM, it's more days, more racing, and they manage to have big full fields. He is essentially moving in the same direction in Laurel now, and I'm dying to see what he does out at Santa Anita. If he can do it out there, it'll be a real home run. But again, the Maryland racing program under Tim Ritvo has kind of progressed nicely, and as I say, the winter stakes schedule is a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And in fact, we were down to around 140 days a few years ago, and I think this year they're going to run about 185 at Laurel and Pimlico, mostly at Laurel. But so yeah, they're clearly adding days. It's been a little bit ragged this winter with field size. It's tough. It's a tough time of year, and with declining foal crops and all that, it's a fight to get horses for sure. But mostly they do a pretty good job. This card, I got to be honest, yesterday's card's a little bit of a challenge because they have a stakes card. They had a stakes card 2 weeks previously, and two or three of the races 2 weeks ago had basically the exact race back yesterday. So you had a bunch of horses that kind of picked one or the other, which probably, meant a little bit of a blow to some of yesterday's card. But nevertheless, you're right. It's a lot of fun, and this is our last prep for the General George and the Fritchie, so we definitely saw some horses yesterday that we're going to see next month, and that should be fun too.
And before we move on and touch on some of the stakes, update us weather. The word came out that Laurel canceled today. And we talked to Dave Rodman yesterday, and I think he nailed it. When we talked to Rodman, he said you guys were expecting some snow that may hit the end of the program. And watching the simulcast signal, it looked kind of like that's how it worked out. It looked like you had some flurries coming in towards the end of the day.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It was actually the snow pretty much, held off. Maybe there was the tiniest flurry or two for the 8th race, which was the Nellie Moore Stakes, and then began sort of in earnest in the 9th race, and that was it. So, we were pretty lucky. It was overcast and it was cold, but the snow had no impact on the racing yesterday.
All right, let's jump in and take a look at some of the stakes action. The What a Summer yesterday, as I say, we talked to Rodman, and we kind of agreed, it was going to go through late night powwow. There was no way. It was a scratch-reduced field of 4, and as you say, some of these fields suffered a little bit, but this one I think it was more that folks just looked at the PPs and said, do we want to go up against the 9 for 10 West Virginia bred in here? And she now makes it 10 for 11 in the career. Nice 4-year-old filly, as I say, a West Virginia bred, moving on to just about $500,000 in earnings, just under that, you would have to think, after yesterday. So Late Night Powwow is the number 2 horse here in the field of 4. Wins by a chart margin of 6 1/4, but absolutely logical.
Yeah, I mean, she was. The scratches, prior to the scratches, this race absolutely set up for her because the 2 horses that scratched were both speed horses. Burnix Bank, who stayed in, is a speed horse. And Late Night Powwow typically has done her best work from mid-pack. So it absolutely set up for her. The scratches kind of left Burnix Bank as the main speed player. And that's what makes this race, to me, so impressive for Late Night Powwow, is that she basically is dueling with Burnix Bank. Burnix Bank is a speed horse. Burnix Bank is working hard in the early part of this race. Late Night Powwow is pretty much under a stranglehold from Freddie Peltroche, and then just draws away whenever he wants. And she's just getting better and better and better, and she's going to be an absolute handful next month in the Fritchie.
Yeah, that was just a nice-looking performance. As I say, anytime you look at a horse and you see 10 for 11 on the career record, it's impressive, and she's going to start to catch attention. Racing mostly at Charlestown, you're a little under the radar, but as she moves into these kind of stakes like the Fritchie, she's going to start catching attention and maybe getting a little social media following.
I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. I mean, she's a fun story because she's totally a West Virginia horse. She was bred by John McKee, who's been out there for a million years. Javier Contreras bought her from McKee. He's a Charlestown guy. Wins a whole bunch of races with her, and then Breeze Easy LLC bought her privately from Contreras, but they decided to leave Contreras as the trainer. But they definitely have bigger fish in mind. Mike Mollick, who's the racing manager there, was saying that they're thinking Fritchie, Madison, Humana Distaff kind of races. So I'm curious to see how she goes on, but she has made very, very short work of some halfway decent horses in her last couple of starts.
Yeah, she'll be fun to watch. Late Night Powwow. All right, let's move on to the Native Dancer. And again, we had Rodman on yesterday, but we also had Terry Finley from West Point Thoroughbreds. And I said to Terry, and I just said it and thought it anecdotally, but in prep for Terry's interview, I looked it up. I said, boy, in here doing the afternoon handicapping show, it seems like over the last few weeks I've seen the West Point Silks in the winner's circle a lot. And sure enough, I went back to the beginning of December, 12 winners at 7 different tracks for West Point Thoroughbreds over about that 5-week period. Well, that set things up nicely for the Native Dancer as General Downs, who, by the way, Dave Rodman touted as his selection in here. General Downs is the number 2 horse, gets it done in here at 4-1. Rich Daddy runs second, Just Call Kenny third. Number 5 is Bonus Points, the 2-1 favorite for Todd Pletcher. A little bit of a disappointing 5th in the field of 7, but it was a nice win under the West Point Silks for General Downs.
Yeah, good for Rodman for touting him. I actually was on Rich Daddy in this race. This was a screwy race because the 3-horse Saratoga Jack, projected to be the main speed, missed the break, got squeezed back, and then was really rank and kind of ran off with Carol Cedeno. So ends up kind of, Tour de Force makes the early lead. Saratoga Jack comes and blows everything up. And talking to Julian Pimentel, who was on General Downs, it all really kind of played to his advantage because he just kind of sat there. He was sitting in behind the lead anyway, kind of watched everything blow up in front of him, and then just kind of, waited a little bit, tipped outside, and took over, and then had plenty to hold off Rich Daddy at the end. So pretty nice effort. I mean, this was a race. It was a pretty evenly matched field. It was not. There's no star coming out of this race. I mean, these horses are all pretty nice horses, but that's probably what they are.
Yeah, I have written at the top of the page, it's funny you say that, can make a case for most in here, which I thought was the case. But we're talking to Terry yesterday. I think he feels that way about General Downs. We talked about the horse maybe seems to be getting better or had gotten better at the end of the 5-year-old season. And he said, some of these horses, you stay patient and they can just get into themselves and get good. I got a text after the race from Tommy Bellhouse at West Point Thoroughbreds. And, hey, General Downs, a stakes winner at 6. So just one of those hard-knocking horses that you like to root for.
Yeah, I mean, and you love to see horses stick around and stay in training and then come into their own. And the only downside is it makes you wonder what would have happened to some of those, some of the horses that were stars at 3 and 4 if they could have stayed around another year or two. But that's a different matter for a different day, I think.
I always relate that to my all-time favorite horse, Forgo. I mean, he got good when he was 5 and 6, and we, just don't get the chance to see that as often as we'd like to. Well, Gunrunner. I mean, Gunrunner was just getting good when he left. Which gave everybody a taste of that kind of scenario. All right, the fire plug at Laurel yesterday. 6 furlongs for 4-year-olds and up. The number 2 is Home Run Maker, getting it done for Jeremiah Engelhardt. We talked with Rodman a couple of weeks ago. He had Isotope that won a stake down there, and that stakes day you mentioned 2 weeks ago. So Jeremiah had a nice little stakes run over the past couple of weeks down at Laurel. But Home Run Maker had shown an affinity for the course already. He's the number 2 horse. Chic of Chics, the number 6, runs second as the 8-5 favorite, and Shane's Jewel runs third. But again, Jeremiah with a horse getting up there to win by a chart margin of a half a length.
Yeah, I mean, this horse, this was a nice effort. This horse... I talked to Jorge Vargas, who rode him here, and he said, I worked him the other day. He had gone 47 and change for a half mile. He said my arms were killing me after that work. The horse was just dragging him around, and that's kind of what happened here. He kind of had to wait for room. Finally had to tip out about 3 paths in mid-stretch to find running room, but he really finished nicely here. It was a good effort. This is a horse that clearly is on the improve. Engelhardt has a couple of nice horses, and you wonder. One of his bevy of pretty good horses is probably going to show up in the General George. Could be this one, could be one of the others.
Yeah, that was a nice performance with a horse that had showed a little bit of an affinity for the Laurel surface. Wound things up stakes-wise yesterday, at Laurel in the Nellie Morse. And I tipped my hat again to Dave Rodman because, to me, Face It, coming down from New York for Kieran and Godolphin, Face It was going to be the horse that you had to beat. But Rodman said, you know what, don't sleep on Timeless Curls. He put that one on top. And number 4, Timeless Curls, gets it done. Meanwhile, number 6, Face It, as the even money favorite, 5th in the field of 5 in there. So a disappointing effort from that one, but a nice win for Timeless Curls.
Yeah, this filly is really coming along nicely for Del Capuano and Weston Hamilton, and I talked with the owner, Sukin Pazram, it was his first stakes win as an owner, so nice. He was pretty excited. And this was sort of an interesting race because right out of the gate, Timeless Curls goes to the lead. Face It is determined to get the lead. So Timeless Curls takes back and drops, a couple lengths off the pace. And then when other horses kind of come up outside, he moves, she moves rather, and rather suddenly gets to the lead, nearing the quarter, and then clearly best from there. And she's got a lot of talent. I'm curious to see how she goes on from here. They had thought about putting her in the 38 Go-Go, which was the kind of similar race 2 weeks back. It was a big field, this and that. Dale decided to kind of sit and wait, and obviously that worked out pretty well for them in this spot. And I mean, this filly is, I think, 5 for 9 now in her career, so she's obviously got some talent. She's gone through all her conditions. Now she's won a stake. You got to at least give a little bit of a thought to hunting for bigger game than you've hunted so far.
Yeah, as you say, 5 for 9, so I agree. It'll be interesting to see where they go in the future. And we should also mention ridden by Wes Hamilton, one of the finalists for the Apprentice Eclipse. And of course, over the years, Maryland has been a potent breeding ground for those Apprentice Eclipse awards.
Yeah, and he's he's clearly he's, as you say, he's one of the finalists. He's a pretty major contender, I'd say.
Yeah.
This was his second stakes win. He won a stake earlier in the summer at Delaware, so he's pretty excited about that, obviously. And he hooked up with Dale Capilano pretty early in his career, and that has been a really profitable partnership for both of them. They have won a lot of races together, including now these two stakes. And with this filly, looks like they're going to have a lot of fun with this filly going forward.
Yeah, and again, that Apprentice Eclipse is going to be fun to watch. I thought all three of the finalists were live in there. Frank, before we let you go, I was perusing the Racing Biz, and a topic that we have covered with you over the past, month and a half or so, Preakness at Pimlico. I found it interesting. You had an article on there. The Maryland Senate president comes out and says the Preakness should be at Laurel.
Yeah, this is kind of a big deal. Mike Miller, who is the Senate president, has been the Senate president for a million years, and is widely considered, one of the most powerful people in Maryland, if not the most powerful person. I mean, he is a major player, and he represents Prince George's County, in which Laurel sits in 3 different counties, Prince George's being one of them. But so it's maybe not a shock that he would be in favor of this, but at the same time, what is important here is if Pimlico is going to get rebuilt, it's going to need multiple hundreds of millions of dollars from the state. And if the Senate president is saying, I'm not sure I see that, that's probably a bad sign for folks who want to see Pimlico rebuilt. So to me, this is a pretty important development that certainly makes it more likely than not that the Preakness is going to end up at Laurel in the next couple of years.
Yeah, when I read that headline, I agreed completely. That seems like an interesting development. One of the political bigwigs is kind of saying, hey, Laurel is more attractive, because it will all come down to politics and money, obviously, with the poll being the Baltimore people, I think, want to keep it at Pimlico and want to rebuild Pimlico. But with the price tag they're putting on that project, it's going to be a hard poll.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the latest Stadium Authority report was $424 million. And, the Baltimore Sun is floating this idea that there should be, public-private partnership, and the city and the state should kick in some, but the track should kick in 150 or 175 million. And, it's kind of one of those situations where if the Maryland Jockey Club were saying, we really need a new Pimlico, build us a new Pimlico, then you make a really strong case. Yeah, they should participate in a pretty significant way in paying for it. They're actually not saying that. They're saying, look, we're perfectly happy to run this race at Laurel. We don't need a new Pimlico. So then you're sort of in a position of, gee, should the state be forcing a private company to spend 9 figures to build a new Pimlico that they don't want? And if so, what's the mechanism for that, and how does that work? And let's put it this way: if I'm the Maryland Jockey Club, I'm going to tread very carefully for the next few months, and I'm going to hope that the outcome is more people like Mike Miller say, you know what, this doesn't make sense for the state to do.
Yeah, and just I've never been to Pimlico, but just talking to people and having been at Laurel a couple of times in the past, not recently, and I guess there's been some nice improvements since, but I think Laurel would be a nice facility for the Preakness. And as racing fans, the middle jewel of the Triple Crown is an important part of the racing scene, but I think Laurel would not be a downgrade by any means, maybe an upgrade, actually. So it'll be interesting to keep our eyes open and our ears to the ground. And one of the best ways to do that, follow the news on theracingbiz.com. Frank, we appreciate the visit and the conversation. And, of course, with that nice stake schedule at Laurel, expect to talk again in the next few weeks.
Well, we'll look forward to it. I appreciate you having me, and we'll look forward to talking with you soon.
Sounds good. Frank VESPE from theracingbiz.com. Again, great way to keep up with all the racing action in the Mid-Atlantic region. As I say, you can go pick up that article on the Maryland Senate president and his declaration that the Preakness should be in Laurel. And he had the caveats of, if they could come up with the money, Pimlico's okay, but where's the money come from, as we said. All right. I'm going to wrap things up for this edition of Racing Across America. I do want to remind you one more time, there is a bankroll here today at the Clubhouse Racebook, and we would love to see you here. Bankroll Bonanza has been going on since Thursday, and we've given out some money over the past few days, so hopefully that will continue this afternoon as well. I'll be looking at Aqueduct, Tampa, Gulfstream, maybe a little Fairgrounds in the mix. It should be a lot of fun, and it's more fun the more people we get. So stop on down and spend some of your Sunday with us. You can put your name in the hat between 11 and 2 o'clock. We'll select a team of 20 folks at 2 o'clock. I'll start betting at about 1 and hopefully build that $300 up into, who knows. We'll shoot for the sky this afternoon with the bankroll. At the end of the day, everybody on the team splits up the remaining money. Always a lot of fun. Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Also, don't forget you can watch all the football action down here today as well. Again, Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. Want to thank our friends at Woodbine or Gulfstream. I keep going back to Woodbine. They were the sponsor in the summertime. Wintertime it is Gulfstream. We're going down in a couple of weeks. Looking forward to that. The Pegasus will be down with some live broadcasts from Gulfstream Park. So certainly want to thank our friends at Gulfstream for their sponsorship. Gulfstream Park, champions start here. All right, I'm going to wrap things up for this edition of Racing Across America. Stop on down, Clubhouse Racebook today for the bankroll. Love to see you here. We'll have some cut-ins during the afternoon with maybe some ideas of racing wagers for, as I say, the tracks we'll be looking at on this Sunday. Should be a lot of fun, great racing action. Don't forget, we mentioned earlier, Laurel has canceled due to weather. Otherwise, it looks like things are a go. Stay tuned to the network. As I say, we'll have some cut-ins during the afternoon. In the meantime, enjoy all the racing. We'll see you again next week.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.